Can't get you out of my mind. It's like I feel it for the first time.
Well, on that note, welcome back. Hi.
We're back, and we do plan to be more consistent. We really do.
We literally say that every podcast. But listen, we're
Busy bitches.
working girls. Like somebody has to
Pay the bills.
pay the bill.
I guess it's gonna be me, unless anyone else contributes. Or
Yeah.
no. How have you been? How's life?
Life is busy. Life is like I couldn't snap for like 2 snaps. No, life is busy. I've been traveling. Well, we both
have
traveling a lot.
A lot. More than my entire life.
Literally more than my entire life. And honestly, like, I'm happy about it. Like,
I love it.
It's kind of crazy. I had a realization like literally an hour ago that I'm literally living the life that I wanted to live like
me too.
years ago.
Oh my God, it's crazy. You had that realization because like recently I've been thinking that I'm like, wow, like whenever I pictured me in my 20s, I'm like, this was it. Like booked, busy, bus, club, another club.
Literally.
If you know where that sound is from. But like, yeah, no, like it's been pretty much, well, I mean, last month, was it already a month ago, Dylan? In Halloween, almost a month ago, I was in Miami.
It was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Doesn't it feel like years ago?
It feels like a while now. And funny story, while I was in Miami, my returning flight was canceled along with 2,000 other motherfucking flights that weekend from American Airlines. So a bitch stayed an extra day in Miami because I couldn't find another flight with American until it was like Sunday that I was supposed to fly back. I couldn't find another flight until Tuesday night. And so I ended up canceling my fucking flight. Only got refunded half of it. Shitty fucking airline. And I flew back home like a day later. So I was in Miami for a total of 4 days when it was supposed to be 3. But my trip was so much fun. And I'm honestly, when my flight was canceled, of course, I was like frustrated and annoyed. But I got to spend another day with Dylan, and we were just having so much fun, like bonding for reals, huh?
Yeah, it felt like we lived together.
We kind of did.
It's funny because, like, so I guess to give perspective, so you were supposed to fly out that Sunday, but then your flight got canceled. So you had to stay for Monday, but like I still had to work. And on Mondays I work from home. What?
I said so did, like, we both still had to work. Like we were working from home together.
No, so I had to work and on Mondays I work from home, but it's just funny because I woke up like early because I knew I was gonna have to drop off Angela like at the airport.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because I was like working while Angela was sleeping, and it felt like I had like a kid or something.
Like a teenage kid, like still sleeping in your bed, like you're like early working.
Like somebody has to provide for this family.
No, and then when was it? The day before that too. When my flight was leaving at noon, my original flight back, and a friend had slept over with us too that night because we went out the night before, and I didn't have to get up so early, but you guys were up like 8 a.m. I'm like, I'm fucking waking up at like 10, you know? And Dylan like woke me up before he left to say bye to the friend, and I like, oh God, I probably looked so awful. She was like so sweet, like, bye, so nice to meet you and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm up. I'm gonna get ready now. How long were you gone for? Like 25 minutes? You come back
Yeah,
and
like
I'm
30
like,
minutes.
you come back and I'm like in the same fucking place, sleeping in bed. You're like, hello? I thought you were up. I can very much still be a teenager when it comes to sleeping. A bitch loves to hit snooze. I love to sleep in.
No, and like I remember like on Saturday when we were going to brunch, like we went to a party the night before, so we were still like kind of hungover, but
Uh-huh.
like I woke up we had to be at the brunch at like 11:30 I think, and I woke up at 10.
This was that same weekend, by the way. Like this was
Yeah.
all what we're talking about would happen in literally 3 days. So continue.
Yeah, but Angela, like I swear I was trying to like wake you the fuck up, but you just would not get up.
Wait, how many times did my alarm go off?
Oh my gosh, so many fucking times. And like you sleep through it every time. It's
I
like
didn't hear it.
this close to your ear.
Really, it's like right next
You're
to my head
still
too.
you're still dead asleep.
Isn't that horrible? I dislike that very much, but I don't know. It's gotten better, but like, yeah, it's really hard for me to wake up sometimes. Like, I don't even hear it. There could be a fucking fire alarm going off, and I will still be sleeping.
Oh my gosh, there was a fire alarm that went off at 3 o'clock in the morning in my building. And I
Again.
was like, I know Angela would have slept through this.
Oh, I fucking would have.
shit.
I don't. What's the point? Is it real? Like, is it a real alarm? Is the building on fire? If
Is
not,
it
I'm
a
gonna stay in my
drill?
bed. Like the fucking remember in school the monthly fire drills. Is this another one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of school and being nostalgic about fire drills, we wanted to talk about in this podcast the nostalgia that our generation, I think it's mostly millennials and Gen Z, that really are experiencing like a lot of nostalgia. Like when it comes to what's popular nowadays, a lot of it has to do with like 90s, 2000s, like things that were popular when we were babies. So, yeah, I guess I'll start us off with it. So I kind of like did some research on nostalgia, and I wanted to bring up how nostalgia started. Apparently, from my research, in the late 17th century, a French medical student named Johannes Hofer noticed that Swiss mercenaries serving abroad were experiencing symptoms related to fatigue, irregular heartbeat, insomnia, indigestion, and fever. And he realized that the cause of this was because those mercenaries were really yearning for their homeland. So that's kind of when he started doing research, I guess, on it or studying them. And the word nostalgia started, and it's Greek. Nostos stands for homecoming, and algos means longing. So
I feel like I'm at like
a
a
school
presentation in
presentation.
school.
I just wanted to give the background, I was curious.
And you're reading off of the PowerPoint, but still presenting to the class.
Hey, I'm just trying to be factual right now. So anyways, so it's just that's how nostalgia started, everybody. And it's just such a thing nowadays. Like, I don't know about you, but when I think of nostalgia, the first thing I would think about is like back in like 2014, 15, 16, when Friends was on Netflix. I want to say those were the years. Those are the years I remember anyway. It was such a fucking thing. Like the merch, the fucking stickers, the quotes, everybody of the social media posts, like the obsession with the 90s, and also like just the show Friends really had us in a chokehold. And I don't know. I mean, Friends is great and all, but like it's really not that great of a show. So I find myself questioning too, like, was it really that great? Or are we just fucked up in some way where we're like stuck in the past, reliving the 90s music and shows and fashion and you know what I mean?
I mean, 100%. And like Friends, like is a good show, but
Not that
at
good.
this point, huh?
I was like, it's good, but it's not that good.
It's good, but it's like it's gotten to a point where it's so meta and so popular. It's like, all right, we
Obnoxious.
fucking get it. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I have a question for
Yeah.
you. What do you think, like when you want to feel nostalgic, what what do you go to? Like, is it a video? Is it a
Uh-huh.
movie? Is it a TV show? Is it music? Like, what makes you nostalgic?
There's two things that come to mind. First, it's music. I love all kinds of music. I love music from beyond the fucking just 2090s. Like I'll listen to oldies. I'll listen to so many different kinds of things. But for sure, there's a very, very, very special place in my heart for 2000s and 90s R&B, rap. Like this music that I don't think will ever not be popular. That's what I question too. Like in the future, are we still going to be listening to 2000s and 90s, pop and stuff like that? It's just crazy. The other thing is definitely, and it doesn't happen as often. It really only happens when it's like special occasions, but Disney movies, like for sure, the classics, The Lion King, Monsters Inc., like those kind of things take me back to my childhood because those are some of my earliest memories. What about you?
There are like so many things that make me nostalgic. For one, which actually I've been recently been getting obsessed with is like Mario Kart, like just Nintendo in general, like Pokemon, Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros. Like that is literally my childhood. Like I grew up as someone with no fucking friends who only ever hung out in my bedroom and like all I did was play video games and watch TV. So 100% like when I think of the GameCube or like the
Mhm.
Nintendo Wii, like nostalgic vibes 100%. Another thing that makes me super nostalgic is the show Naruto. Because
Oh, you
again,
watched that?
fuck yes, I watched that, girl. That's like one of my favorite shows of all
This
time.
is the first time I'm hearing that, and I've known you for like 4 to 5 years. Like, what?
Yeah, it's because you never listen to me and you hate anime.
Oh my God, shut up. I don't hate it.
But no, I love Naruto so much. Like it holds such a special place in my heart. And like I don't know. Anytime I watch it or think about it, or even like I used to play like the Naruto video games too, like I'm immediately teleported back to like fourth grade. And actually, oh my gosh, like it's so funny that we're talking about nostalgia because um if you're into Pokemon, you know that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are coming out this Friday, which are the remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So I'm
You
gonna
lost
feel
me.
really
I'm gone.
nostalgic. Yeah,
The
I
fuck
know.
you talking about? Like, what?
Well, okay, Pokemon Diamond was literally the first Pokemon game I ever played, so I have like a lot of nostalgia with that, and they're basically releasing the remake of it this Friday. So I'm really excited
Anywho,
about.
that's great. So happy for you.
You're
So
such a fucking bitch. Do I interrupt you when you're saying that you listen to oldies?
yes, actually. So yeah, so basically, and that brings up a good point, Dylan. Actually, the way I think what the biggest reason our generation is obsessed with things from the past, and even you know what, a good point we didn't discuss earlier when we were talking. Do you hear my dog? 1 second. Something we didn't discuss about when starting this podcast, starting the topic for this podcast was like the way that TikTok, something that's incredible, the most modern social media at the moment, and something that's really taken over the world is how a lot of there's been two songs, right, that we've noticed have kind of resurfaced, literally old songs that are being played on like the radio or on in like Target.
Yeah.
You're like, this song is from 2006. What business is it have being played at a fucking like, something new? And what was it? That song "Man Eater" by Nelly Furtado.
Man Eater by Nelly Furtado and what's it called? Just for Me by Pink Pantheress.
Yeah, like these are old ass songs that like I just have so many questions. Like, was there any other in the past, was anyone obsessed, like, say people living in the 50s, are like, oh my God, remember that song in the 1944?
Well,
Like,
you know what?
no.
In the 1980s, I think people were obsessed with like the 50s culture of
Really?
like soda hop diners and poodle
Oh,
skirts. Like that's why the movie
Grease.
Grease
Oh my
was
God.
like so
Right.
popular.
Okay, well, you're right about that. But there was another point too with what you were saying, the Pokemon game being re-released. Marketing, it's a huge marketing tactic to use nostalgia as a way to like rebrand, resell, reboot, remake
Yeah,
a
you're
whole version.
welcome for that point, by the way.
No, I like what you wrote. What did you say? You're like, what sells better than sex? Nostalgia.
Nos- Nostalgia sells better than sex. Absolutely, 100% of the time. Like
Yeah.
that's why we have like so many reboots of TV shows. Like
Mhm.
that's why we have so many remakes. Like people people just want to, you know what nostalgia also is more than anything? It's an escape.
Oh,
It's an
yes,
escape from being an adult with
absolutely.
a shitty job with adult problems. Like it's an escape to what once was like a carefree moment in your life.
Absolutely. That brings me to my other, to your point, using some corporate jargon here. To your point, yes, nostalgia, absolutely. A lot of people use it as a form of escapism. Not to call anybody out here, but when you think about things like cosplay or just like people who identify with a certain time period or a certain type of music, usually that's associated with things like sadness, anxiety, depression. And apparently, there's actually a thing called nostalgic personality disorder. And much like the example I gave earlier of how the word nostalgia came to be with that French scientist who was studying the soldiers who were having
Okay, I'm back at the presentation
the
class again.
symptoms for the nostalgic personality disorder include wait. Let me sound more natural. Symptoms for the fucking personality disorder include things like insomnia, anxiety, and sadness. So I feel like a lot of us do have that. Honestly, who doesn't? Who nowadays isn't fucking sad, can't sleep, and has anxiety? That's like mostly everybody.
Honestly, if you don't have depression and anxiety in
Get
this
the fuck out.
economy, get the fuck out. What are you doing here?
This podcast ain't for you, honey.
Sorry, babes.
Yeah, but it's just I think it's just like this whole concoction of like marketing preying upon us with using this really powerful marketing technique. We're so controlled, it's disgusting. Like this really pulls strings within us, and it's like the other reason is because we're using it. When I say we're, I mean like the younger generation is probably using it as a form of escapism. I mean, social media is the biggest form of escapism next to drugs. Like it's literally a drug. So
Well, you know what? On the topic of like social media specifically is using it, I think it's like, so like, I think a huge thing with like 90s TV shows like Friends was that they didn't have social media. They didn't have, I mean, they had like what house phones and then they had like those big, huge cell phones, but like
those big
largely they.
cell phones.
Wait,
Just
I'm gonna
cell
put a
phones.
pin in that. Do you remember one time you were like, you were like, Dylan, if you had to live in like
This
a
time
non
period.
like modern time period, you would fucking die, and I
Oh, you would.
would. But anyway, I think like a huge appeal to shows like Friends is that there wasn't social media, there really wasn't like the internet. Like the internet
Of course
existed,
not.
but it was nowhere near as saturated and as advanced as it was now. And there, I think like with our generation or like millennial Gen Z, there's a huge fascination with that. Like there's very much a like,
With the olden times, you mean?
yeah, no, I'm
Wow,
serious, Angel. Like I think there is a fascination
that's
of like
crazy.
this was a much simpler time. Remember when we didn't have dating apps and we had to like
Ugh,
meet people in
take
person?
me
Like
back.
you actually had
No
'Cause you're
dating apps. Say no
37.
more. I'm there.
No, like when people actually had to like actually socialize and talk to each other. I think like for a lot of
Ugh,
people, there's a big see, even you're like,
I'm like craving
living
that. I'm
for
like,
it. Like,
imagine a world like that.
no, there's a huge fascination with that. And I think that adds sort of, because realistically, like, I'm not necessarily nostalgic for the 90s. I don't remember. I was alive in the 90s, but like, I have no recollection of the 90s.
What
Like,
about the
I
2000s though?
I was a baby. Well, no, obviously the 2000s, but I'm saying is like the reason why like nostalgia and like 90s and like past decades are such a like huge thing right now is because it was like a simpler time.
And we want to escape back to that. How fucking sad. The world is fucked up, y'all. We're in it. So, I mean, this kind of leads me to think more towards the future. Like, we're going through this huge. How do you say, Bruno? Stop. Be quiet, please. Sit down. What the fuck is going on? So, like, we're going through this time right now where marketing is shoving down nostalgic things down our throat. Social media is like reminiscing. We're bringing back old songs. We're remaking old movies. We're wearing fucking Fresh Prince of Bel Air and Friends and all these old things that you thought back then, oh, this is gonna go out of style. Like, where's how much room is there for then like new creativity? And my other question too is the 2020 times going to be reminisced about in another 20, 30 years, like another few decades? Are kids now going to be like, oh my God, remember 2020 when we were all making TikTok dances? This just leads me to so many questions. But it's just funny how nostalgic like people are. It's kind of pissing me off now. I'm like, find something new, y'all.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because for me, I feel like there are when I think of like fashion in 2021, I think of literally
That-
three distinct decades, which is the 90s, early 2000s, and the
Oh
70s.
my God, you're
So
right.
you have these three decades clashing and coming together right now
Wow.
to create what is 2020 or the 20s fashion.
Hmm.
So I think like I don't know, I think we're always going to have like marketing and remakes and reboots. Unfortunately, they're always going to happen, and you know what, people have been complaining about that for years.
Yeah, yeah.
Like even when I was a kid, dude, people were like,
Another
"Oh, are they gonna
remake.
make something, yeah, like when are they going to make something original?" So I feel like that honestly is never going to go away because why? Nostalgia fucking sells. But I do think that 2020 is going to have its own mark in the sense of like there are so many different decades like coming together because even the 90s was very much inspired by the 70s, the platform boots,
True.
the baggy clothing, like they have like very similar silhouettes.
Yeah.
So
And also, fashion specifically is very cyclical. Like, things always come back in
absolutely.
style, always. So
Mhm.
maybe that's just how we are too culturally. Like, things always come back in style. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think social media really also magnified, like we were saying, the past. We were able to like, oh my God, remember this? I'm like, oh my God, they actually had style. It actually looked good. So very interesting
Which,
topic.
by the way, I honestly hate that shit. Like,
You do.
I don't know. I'm all for like being nostalgic and like
It's too much sometimes.
it's too much and it's like
Like, we
can
get
we
it.
live like in the now? Like
Yeah. Or
yeah,
be
like can
present.
we appreciate like the good shit that there is now? I just hate and I feel like I've maybe talked about this before on the podcast, but I hate when people are just like ever since I was a kid, people have always been like today's music sucks,
Yeah.
today's fashion sucks. And now people appreciate that music and that
Right.
fashion from when I was a kid. And I feel like it's always going to be a thing of like people think whatever is current and what's popular sucks, and I just, for the sake of it being popular,
Mm.
and I just really, that
Those are
annoys the
just
shit
the
out of me.
haters.
Yeah, it just annoys the shit out of me. Like, stop. Like, if you're not into something, that's fine, but like, shut the fuck up. Do you think you're cool because you don't like what's popular? Like, get the fuck out of here.
I think you heard this a lot growing up. Funny.
I
Yeah,
did.
I agree with you. I'm just gonna keep questioning and thinking like, what, man. I think also like nostalgia and us like when I'm really thinking about like social media here and how people are using nostalgia to make, I don't know, like new fucking TikTok dances and like new sound. Like it just, it's stealing a creativity. I feel like it's robbing us of new creativity, and don't know. It's just, it's an interesting thing. Interesting thing. I feel like maybe, yeah, other generations too were obsessed with the 50s and stuff like that, like in the 80s, but wasn't to this extreme. I feel that wasn't this
You
extreme.
know what? I do feel like there is one person, at least that comes to my mind, who does use nostalgia, but
Correctly.
who uses it, yeah, correctly, like in a, but who is so extremely creative,
I know who
like
you're gonna say.
Doja Cat.
Yes, I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, like okay, Tia Tamara. Uh,
Her
uh, uh,
song.
uh, I can't. There's another song that like not a lot of people know about. It's called Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
like for Halloween, she dressed as like Miss
Yes.
Bellum and Cynthia. Like she uses a lot of nostalgia. Oh, like in the Like That video, she was Sailor Moon. Like
I
she
think,
uses so much nostalgia,
yeah,
like in her, I guess, brand.
right.
But she is so extremely creative and extremely talented that I
Take
feel
it to
like
the next level.
it's done
Hmm.
tastefully. Like it's
Right.
done not in a way that it's like being shoved down my throat, or
Hmm.
it's not done in a way that's like, oh, you know, she's dressing up as Sailor Moon. I love Sailor Moon. I'm gonna watch it. It's like, no, like she's a very creative and talented artist who just happens to use like these little nostalgic things
We're gonna
sometimes.
be known this time period. I feel like is gonna be known for how obsessed we were with the past. Really, I really do think that. I don't know. I really
And
do.
like I also feel like we didn't talk about like, because well, there I feel like there's a reason like we're obsessed with the past, and
I
it's
have a
because
point.
like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just I didn't want to forget it. I have a point too. Like, you know, us growing up, we were the time of TV, like television, like the
The
cartoons.
golden age of
Yes,
television.
yes, yes. The golden age of television where we were constantly being overloaded with information, with fucking shows, with music. Like there was so much that maybe in a way we're still digesting some of that. Don't you think? Like we're just so overloaded with new and now it's like faster and quicker than ever. But back then, number one, it happened during our childhood where we're literal sponges and remember things, and it feeds our subconscious that now we're just like replaying that over and over again. That kind of ties into what we're talking about with nostalgia, where it's like, do I make sense? Does this make sense? Am I connecting the dots here?
No.
Yeah, I don't make sense.
Not real. Like, what's your like
My point is that like we were born during the golden age of not born. We were growing up during the golden age of television where we were all being overloaded with so much information, like so many there was just so much to take in that our little fucking brains were just filled with things that now as we grew up and we became older, of course we're repeating that cycle because that's exactly what we're doing now with taking things from the past and making them relevant again, and like having there's so many things that relate
so
to that.
so you're saying that when we were like growing up, we were so overloaded with media that we couldn't really enjoy it. So now that we're adults, we
No,
can
it's not that we
enjoy
couldn't
them
enjoy
more.
it. it's that's what's familiar to us. We're like used to that because that's how we grew up. So of course, like that impacted us so much. I think our generation that, and of course with the coming of the internet and social media and all that, like that only accelerated it even more. But we were so obsessed with that. I think even as a young age, that as adults, of course, we would go back to that or replay that. Do I make sense?
I think you make
God.
sense to you, and that's all that matters.
No, I'm like, I'm on to something here. Like, it's like, not our parents aren't like this. My mom never watches cartoons from when she was growing up. My mom never talks about the artists that, like, it's not a thing. Like, they moved on, you know? We didn't.
Mm.
That's what I'm saying. And it's because of the way that the golden age of television impacted us so much as children. And it just kept going from there because of social media, that now our use of social media, independent from how marketing uses nostalgia, independent of that as well, we're obsessed with nostalgic things, or feeling nostalgic, or bringing back the past. Do I make sense now? Is that more clear?
Yeah, no, you know what? That's such a good point, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I listen to music. I mean, we all do. Like, sometimes I listen to music from when I was like in middle school, and I'm like, when my parents were my age, were they doing this? Like,
No, they were not.
no, probably not. And I think you're right. Like, they just moved the fuck on. Like, they were like, oh, and then like they'll just hear like the music from that time period every so often. They'll be like,
Oh,
oh, that's the music I listened to when I was younger. Anyway, like,
yeah, 100%, 100%, 100%.
before you interrupted me, I was gonna say that
Sorry.
we also have been through a lot of oh my gosh, it's so fucking loud. I live on a busy street. I was gonna say that, like, we as like millennial Gen Z have been through a lot. We've been through a lot. Like, we've been through
9/11,
9/11, two economic
Pentagon attack
crises,
on January 6th. Oh, this
Donald Trump being president.
dramatic.
Um, like, we've been through just so much, like,
Yeah,
before the age of 25.
we're
So
fucked up, y'all.
I almost feel like it's not even weird that we're so obsessed with like nostalgia, because we just want to desperately remember a time that to
Yeah,
us like wasn't so shitty.
escapism. Exactly.
Yeah.
Escaping reality, escaping trauma. So, anyways, with this talk, I feel like we should all go to therapy and deal with our trauma so we're not as nostalgic. Yeah.
But you know, I don't feel like it's weird, because I don't think we should like focus so much on it, but I also feel like there's nothing wrong with it.
I think it's all about balance, you know? It's like, yeah, I'm forever gonna love music from the time period when I was growing up, but more so than like my parents would enjoy theirs. But I think it's all about balance, and it's like, you know, being aware of things like that, and not falling into something like the nostalgic personality disorder we talked about, or like living in the past. You know, we have to learn to enjoy the moment, enjoy the present, you know?
See, that's the thing that I feel like I'm so self-conscious of, is I never want to live in the past. And I feel like I learned that at such a young age, how living in the past can be like so unhealthy. Actually, oh my gosh, I just remembered right now. So my like freshman year of high school, I was super obsessed with Tumblr. And I
Oh, you were
remember
one of those kids?
what?
You were one of those kids?
I was one of those kids. I was super obsessed with Tumblr, and I remember I followed this person. I don't even remember their name, but it was like basically it was basically a nostalgia account. Like, they would always post about shit from the 90s and early 2000s. And I remember they posted like, guys, I'm so depressed. Like, I literally want to go back to the 90s. Like, it was the most happiest time of my life, and I'm so depressed right now. I can't even imagine like
Yikes.
the time. Like I can't even imagine me getting to a point where I'm like happy because I'm not living in the 90s. Like something along those lines, and I was like, oh my goodness, like
Intense.
that is so intense, and I feel like that's unhealthy. Like so
Absolutely.
I never want to like live in the past. Like I'm always, in fact, I kind of feel like, which is also on the other side of the spectrum, unhealthy. Like I feel like I live in the future. Like I'm constantly thinking about the next thing. But
Besides the point.
I know I was like, wait, where was I going with this?
Yeah, like, what are we getting
I
into?
never want to live in the past because
Right.
it's just not good.
Yeah, it's hard. I think everybody should. I advocate frequently for like social media breaks. Like, get the fuck off. Like, the you're not gonna miss a thing. You're gonna miss out on real life. And I advocate also for like being self-aware of what is escapism. You know, what are we using as escapism? Sometimes people text as a form to escape the real fucking world, and it's not gonna make you any happier.
You say text?
Yeah, even texting, when people text a lot, or like when it could be anything. Escapism could be a fucking hobby that you take a little bit too seriously, or like that you're spending a little bit too much time on. I think it's just important to remind ourselves to be like in this world that we're basically born into, of information overload, sensory overload. We see what's the number, like hundreds of ads a day without even noticing. It's constantly feeding us our subconscious. We need to remind ourselves to take breaks, to enjoy the present, to be a balanced person, and to, if we're having issues with anything like depression and stuff like that, like, oh yeah, that's another thing that I kept hearing often too. Like recently on social media, people were talking about how apparently rewatching the same show over and over again is a sign of poor mental health. Not crazy.
I could believe that
Yeah,
totally.
because it's what we're talking about. It's escapism, and it's like you just want to feel good, and you're allowing a show to make you feel better. So
Yeah, it's kind of like when you eat like junk food to feel
feel
better. Like you just want something
dopamine.
good. You want
It's a
something
hit of
delicious.
dopamine, right? So, well, we would love to know what y'all are nostalgic about,
Yeah, tell us what you're nostalgic about. Tell us if you participate in nostalgia.
or like what your thoughts are on it too. I feel like we made some points, you know.
Yeah.
I'll make an editing mark here. Is there anything else we should talk about?
Uh,
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Please let us know what y'all think about the nostalgia topic. And if you all have any questions for us, feel free. We're all ears. We do have social media accounts, and it's all at Friend Time Audio everywhere except Facebook. Fuck Facebook. We don't use that. Who's on that nowadays?
I feel like you didn't need to say except Facebook because who the fuck uses Facebook?
Well, little disclaimer for you guys.
LinkedIn though.
Yeah, where to find us on LinkedIn.
Okay, bye.
Bye.